Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. Vorndran, what is your estimate of the percentage of cyber attacks that are criminally motivated versus foreign intelligence cyber operations?
Well, sir, I don't have a good answer to that question today. I would be happy to take that back and get you a more refined answer. All I can say is that between nation-state actors and criminal attacks on U.S. infrastructure, both are extremely prolific.
Do you ever see, or do you believe, in your opinion, do you think there are nation-state actors that are posing as criminals at times to probe our networks under the guise of just seeking ransomware, but actually have a more nefarious intent?
Sir, it's more of a classified discussion, but what I can say here is we would refer to that as a blended threat. And so there are some intelligence gaps about whether intel service individuals are moonlighting as criminals or state actors are hiring criminals to conduct certain activities. So those are some gaps. Certainly happy to have a more classified discussion with you if that's of interest to you.
Okay, thank you. Do you think with the spike that we're seeing in ransomware, is it more that people are more willing to report it, or are there more attacks because crooks are seeing that it's more profitable, it's more lucrative? Why the recent spike, do you think?
So our data, and again, I think it's important to highlight that we only see, our estimates are about 20 to 25% of the total intrusions, and I'm quite sure Brandon would share approximately the same figure with you. So it's very hard to say increase, decrease. What we can say, though, is that in the last 6 months, we have not seen a decrease in the amount or frequency of reporting on ransomware attacks. We attribute it to the simple fact that it's incredibly lucrative for the criminals. That's partially due to the valuation of virtual currency, but it's partially due to the vulnerability of our systems and our infrastructure here that makes it profitable in both ways.
Okay, thank you. Director Inglis, the Colonial Pipeline attack caused major disruption at the gas pumps. There's talk about concern of it shutting down the energy grid. If something like that were to happen, obviously there'd be mass chaos. It's not hard to think of other examples of attacking healthcare systems where we could see a significant loss of life. I know this isn't completely within your purview, but you also have it with a military background as well. In your view, when would such an attack rise to an act of war?
Typically, classically, the attack rises to an act of war when it achieves the same degree of damage that a kinetic weapon would achieve. The loss of health, safety, kind of national security of a significant nature. That being said, these are serious at any level, and therefore requires that we respond fully with the remedies that are proportionate to that need. We need to double down on resilience and robustness. We need to proactively defend these spaces, and we need to find and bring to justice the miscreants, the transgressors who conduct these actions.
Okay, we talked earlier about the 16 critical infrastructure areas, and it's one thing to reach out to a foreign country like Russia and tell them, pretty please, please don't do these things. But should we be engaging in treaties or some sort of formal documents with other nations to establish those tripwires, and like a Geneva Conventions or something of that nature?
There was a global group of experts kind of sponsored by the United Nations in the 2015 timeframe that described norms that constitute reasonable expected behavior in this space. The United States signed on to those. Just a week and a half ago, the Vice President in Paris announced that we would support the Paris Accords, which are a similar articulation of what is reasonable and responsible behavior in this space. They do not have the force, the effect of treaties, but they clearly are recognized by like-minded nations as the way one should behave in this space and what the responsibilities of nations are in this space.
So something like that would provide us then cover and justification if violated. Then when we responded in kind, then we would have kind of the international
It has,
support.
for practical purposes, established what we would describe then as reasonable and appropriate behavior, and therefore we're able to describe what is not.
Mr. Wales spoke earlier in his testimony of improving our incident reporting system. Should the definition of major incident change so that Congress is better informed when cyber attacks occur against federal agencies?
I think that we need to have a standard definition of what major incident constitutes, such that we can uniformly, regardless of where an event might take place, inform the Congress of those things that are truly major or in some cases significant. To your point, if those decisions are all made locally, then there's going to be a certain degree of inherent unevenness if we're going to operate with unity of effort, unity of purpose, we need to make sure that we have a common standard, a common definition, and that when and where appropriate, and there are various situations where that is entirely appropriate, inform the Congress.
Thank you. Now yield back.